Rimworld is a complex game with a variety of systems which contain an incredible amount of detail. These can be a bit overwhelming to new and veteran players alike. Here are some things I wish I knew before playing Rimworld. Rice is the fastest growing sowable plant in Rimworld, and a great place to start when building a farm early game to ensure a steady supply of food for your colonists. Throw down a growing area for some rice as quickly as possible. Number 2. You are able to send corpses to friendly and opposing factions either by caravan or transport pod. Simply load up the corpses from your most recent raid and blast them off to the nearest settlement. Not only does each body sell for 250 silver, but it will also increase settlement reputation. Do you have a pawn you're very attached to, or feel your colony cannot survive without? Well, keep your eye out for resurrector mech serums as quest rewards or for trade. These handy items are able to quite literally bring your pawn back from the dead. However, be aware that this will not work on desiccated corpses. Also, the longer a pawn is dead, the harsher the debuffs are when they've been revived. Strip mining will help ensure you have a solid stream of steel and components for the early and mid game. If you are on a map with large sections of rock or mountain, set a mine order in long straight lines, 2 spaces apart along the X and Y axes, and there you have it. Animals are dirty, and even if they are a pet, they will spread filth. Use a customized zone that excludes areas where pawns live, work, and eat to avoid spreading unnecessary filth and getting a nasty debuff. Kill boxes. Now, this may be a hot button issue for some, but for beginners and veterans alike, a great way to ensure the survival of your precious colonists against these nasty raiders is a kill box. Now, a kill box can come in a variety of different fashions, and how you choose to do it is up to you, but the key features must include a centralized location that will funnel raiders into an area where you will always have the upper hand. Try creating long hallways stuffed with your most deadly traps. EMPs are an incredibly useful asset that can perform a variety of useful tasks, such as you can take out personal shields, as well as stunning mechs and turrets, making them almost a requirement as you progress through the game. Do your best to keep a few in your storage. They can also make people with brain implants vomit. A handy little trick to remember that can be hugely beneficial is that placing a power conduit by itself under every turret and solar lamp to quickly turn them all off and on automatically by reconnecting them, allowing you to quickly toggle their power without creating any sort of special wiring. Being sneaky is a bit of an underappreciated mechanic in Rimworld. However, if you have an infestation and you're low on food, you can sneak past the bugs and nab their food while they dream of devouring you and your children, and instead you can devour the food that would have kept them alive. Ancient dangers are both an asset and, well, a danger. However, the danger can be alleviated a bit when first approaching. When arriving at the ancient danger, if you want to peer inside before picking a fight, try mining the corner of the structure. This will allow you to get a glimpse inside and plan accordingly. Be wary, this does activate the threats inside. However, maybe there was never a threat at all. Feeling a bit broke, colonists begging every passing trade for a scrap of pemmican. Corsets are the answer. You see, corsets have a good value to materials ratio and are able to be produced and sold in large quantities, allowing for a solid source of income early game. Alright, hear me out here. It's not a bad idea. Combining a single prisoner cell with your research room is a great way to save space and multitask early game. The researcher will chat with the prisoner while they work. There is a risk of a prisoner break, but because it's one prisoner and you can keep the room nice, this should be manageable. It actually shouldn't even happen. Heal root is a must in the early game of Rimworld, and you may not have a colonist with a high enough skill to farm them. At the start, you can place single cell growing zones over harvestable plants like bushes and heal root, and disable the sowing so they don't kill the plant, allowing it to be regrown and continuously harvested for a very small amount of renewable resources. Chem fuel is a hugely necessary item used primarily in mid-late game. A good tip to keep in mind when creating chem fuel in a refinery that can save a lot of time and effort is that corpses and insect meat are able to produce chem fuel. Do with that knowledge what you will. When designing your base, you always want to keep in mind how you're going to best defend it. A simple trap that can be used is by lining certain hallways or choke points with wooden floors or carpet, which can be easily lit on fire, causing major damage to any enemies unlucky enough to be trapped in it. Got a crazy pawn, a monster in your midst causing trouble? Slap a joy wire into the troublesome pawn and watch their mood skyrocket and cause much less issues for you and your pawns. Drugs! Drugs are a somewhat underutilized tool in Rimworld. This can be partially due to its cost, however Panat is worth it late game. It's only needed every 5 days and will keep pawns from getting sleeping sickness, malaria, and plague. It's cheap and it takes a while to recover from these illnesses, so learning how to produce this and producing enough will save a lot of headache in the mid to the late game. Devil Strand. This evil sounding plant is anything but. Devil Strand clothing is an amazing source of early game protection and an alternative to flak jackets. Research is necessary section and the tree and start growing. Watch your pawns get a massive protection boost wearing a full set of Devil's gear. Night Owl. Night Owl is a trait pawns can have in Rimworld which gives them the desire to work the night. This also gives them a large happiness buff during these hours. However, if they are forced to work during the daylight hours, the pawn will be extremely unhappy. Make sure to set their schedule to accommodate this trait. Food. Colonists must eat and will suffer massive debuffs if this major need is not met. Generally, a pawn will want to eat right as they wake up and again later in the day towards the night. Higher quality food gives your pawns mood buffs, and if you have the royalty DLC installed, certain ranks will only eat higher quality food. Make food among your highest priorities when playing. Similar to what we discussed earlier with making a prisoner room into a research room, another way to save space and also gain some easy buffs is by creating a dual-purpose dining room and rec room. This is done by creating a larger than usual dining room and placing your recreation items inside, such as a pool table or other enjoyment items. If you have the royalty DLC, you can also add a throne inside and have a viable throne room, making 3 in 1. Just keep in mind that other throne requirements must be met, such as flooring, braziers, and so on. This can get rather expensive late game. A useful tool that should be part of any thriving colony's arsenal are psychic insanity lances. These handy little weapons can be used to create infighting among large attacking forces or used on large enemies such as a centipede or other high health enemies you may need to subdue while your pawn get into defensive positions. Your doctors are one of the greatest assets in a colony. These pawns are responsible for keeping your colonists alive and healthy, whether that be treating them for sickness or healing their wounds sustained in glorious battles. A useful tip, if you have the resources, is to assign one doctor on a day shift and a second doctor to a night shift. This will allow any sick or hurt pawns to be tended to 24/7. This carries us into our next tip, which is all about sculptures. There are a few different types of sculptures in Rimworld, and they can each be made from a variety of materials. Sculptures are an easy way to boost the impressiveness of a room and provide further buffs. The larger sculpture is the most efficient one of the 4 to make when considering time. Material cost and size. Something to remember when constructing sculptures from stony materials is that the stones must be cut into stone blocks first, thus increasing the labor required to produce sculptures from these materials. Have you ever been pulling on a t-shirt in the morning or getting on your favorite pair of pants only to find they've gotten a hole in them? Automatic mood ruiner. Well, your pawns feel the same way and do not like to wear tattered clothing. The tattered clothing debuff starts when a pawn's gear reaches 50% durability. To avoid this debuff, set your pawn's clothing policy to only allow clothes above 51%. When any durability falls below this, the pawn will unequip the gear and put on something better. Familiarizing yourself with Rimworld HUD and various UI elements will save you a headache in the long run. A useful tool that can be toggled on or off depending on your needs is the automatic repair of home structures. This is indicated by the hammer icon in the bottom right. This will tell your pawns to repair or replace damaged items and structures within your home base. This can be useful after a battle where your colony suffered severe damage. Your pawns will go straight to work rather than having to manually replace every piece. Have you got someone who's addicted to a drug and going through withdrawals? This can give them a massive mood debuff and can lead to serious mental breaks which wreak havoc on you and your colony. An effective, albeit a bit macabre, way to deal with this is to remove the pawn's legs or spine. This will make them immobile and unable to have have mental breaks. Once they've kicked their addiction, hook them up with some awesome bionics and you're good to go. If you've just been raided and those pesky raiders have some good armor you want, be quick to strip them before they bleed out. This will help to avoid the tainted apparel debuff and allow you to give the armor or clothing to any pawns without concern for lowering their mood. Pawns with the bloodlust trait can wear tainted clothing with no debuff, just so you know. Every time a person goes on a mental break, they have a chance to question their ideology. This can be advantageous when attempting to convert prisoners. Treating them poorly and forcing them to mental break will allow you to convert prisoners faster, saving vast amounts of time. Overall, it is far more beneficial to make a child's schedule entirely recreation. This will keep their growth need maxed out, speeding up the process at which they grow. If a child reaches tier 8 when they progress to adulthood, they will be allowed to pick 3 passions and choose one of 4 traits, which in turn leads to far more effective pawns than randomly generated ones. Well, there you have it, folks. 30 things I wish I knew before playing Rimworld. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to doing Rim Crimes with all of you very soon.